Companies must move beyond the one-offs to demonstrate a commitment to making a difference.
If you're going to be into cause marketing, you have to A, believe in the cause that you're marketing.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Marketing on Tap. My name again is Sam Fiorella. This is my mate, Danny Brown.
You did your gun fingers.
Got the gun fingers.
It's been a while, but you did them.
You know, I've been sitting on my hands for a lot of this. It's hard for an Italian to not use his hands. Anyway, Danny, today I was inspired by an article that I read. There's a lot of changes happening in cause marketing. And I'm noticing that, companies like Tom's Shoes and Starbucks have made it part of their corporate ethos to get involved in corporate social responsibility programs. But what I've been noticing a lot is that more and more companies are starting to move towards sustainability as their cause. So climate change and environmental sustainability. An example is SC Johnson that released a new bottle for its Windex glass cleaner. It's part of what we're going to be talking about today. It's made with 100% recycled ocean plastic. And it's getting a lot of buzz in the industry. But will this actually translate to business? That's what I want to sort of tackle in today's discussion. Will it have any effect on consumer attitudes and behaviors? Something that we're also always trying to take a look at. And I also want to explore today the 2017 Cone Communications SCR study that provides some really interesting stats around consumer behavior and how they react to brands that take up one of these cause marketing efforts or campaigns. So anyway, so that's what we're going to do today. How does a business tackle this? Is there a good way or a bad way for them to invest in corporate social responsibility? So stay tuned for those of you Stay tuned for those of you.
And again with the gunshot fingers.
Yeah, because I'm going to shoot you if you don't. That's what we're going to be talking about, and I think it'll be a really interesting conversation. So, Danny, what are you pouring before we actually get into the meat of this conversation?
Since it's currently snowing outside and creating a mini blizzard,
yes.
We're about minus 18 today in Toronto.
Minus 18.
Time to go back to a winter beer. So a nice winter stout from our friends at Collingwood, who so far have not created a bad beer, that we've had yet.
No.
But it's been mostly summer, spring, normal core season beers, not seasonal. This is like a winter stout, so it's spiced, got oatmeal through it. You got cocoa, orange, and cinnamon running through this.
Cocoa, orange, cinnamon. Interesting.
Yeah, it's not high ABV. It's only a 5%. Pretty easy drinking, and a 30 IBU. Already, Anna's shaking her head in questionability. Yeah, we'll try it out. So anyway, winter stout from the guys up at the Collingwood Brewery.
All right, cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
I got my Anna cam. It's not going to bite you, Anna. You can sip it.
And I can sip it again.
Oh.
Okay, well, that looks like it's Anna approved.
Yeah, it's nice. It's got a nice little kick to it with the cinnamon and the spices coming through. So
yeah, no, I like it. It's not as even if it's a stout, it drinks more like an ale.
Yeah.
Than it does a stout. It's not that thick.
Yeah.
You almost, from the looks of it, you're expecting a Guinness creaminess out of it, which this doesn't have. I like it. All right, thank you guys. Well, actually, to be clear, when I say thank you for making such a great beer, Collingwood Brewery. But we're not sponsored by Collingwood or any other beer manufacturer for that, or brewer for that matter. Although, if you want to, give us a call. We're always happy to accept free beer. Okay, Danny, let's get into the conversation. I want to start with that study that I found. We have a lot of our clients that have been asking, do I get involved in this cause marketing? Is it important? We've been talking, on and off about some of these things, the boycott issue that we talked about in the last one. People seem to be afraid to get involved in something like this, yet they see companies like Bell Canada with its Let's Talk movement and that are really, at least from a PR perspective, profiting from getting involved. So one of these campaigns I thought was interesting. This study was interesting. One of the lessons learned from this survey of consumer behavior on how they view businesses that take up one of these causes. One of the lessons learned was, in a time of political unrest, consumers are looking beyond governments to address key social and environmental issues. which I thought was fascinating. 2/3 of Americans believe that progress on these key issues will be slowed by a potential absence of government regulation, and so are looking to businesses. I thought that was fascinating because normally it's way business, stay out of this. Just
Right.
sell your product. Don't try and tell me how to live my life. And yet 2/3 of Americans say, no. Government is clearly not going to do anything about this. We want somebody to do it, and businesses need to stand up.
Yeah.
Is this an opportunity for businesses?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm reading a really good book at the moment called Utopia for Realists.
You read?
Now and again, if it's a good book, like I said, a marketing book from 5 years ago. But it's a really good read, and it ties into this where, it has so many stories and like empirical proof about how the government wants to keep the status quo when there's a better option. And that's why we're seeing in the US such a sweep of the Democrats that came to power in the midterms, etc. They need a change in how government performs. And brands have seen that and they've stepped up, like Starbucks. They've been one of the guys that have always stepped up.
Yeah.
Obviously Nike, and they've just released a new one.
Yeah.
So brands are seeing what happens when they take a stand and they try and make sort of social change through, cause marketing.
Yeah.
And if the consumers swip to that, of course the brands are going to say, okay, we've got some power here.
But how aligned are they? Another insight from this study was that consumers reward value-aligned brands. The idea here is that consumers are using a company's value or what they state their values are as a filter for whether they should support or even punish, for that matter, an organization. The actual statistic was 87% of consumers stated that they would purchase a product based on the business's values because the company advocated for an issue they cared about. And 76% would boycott a brand if supported by an issue contrary to their beliefs, which is fascinating. Again, it's this, we talked about this the last couple of weeks. It's this, far extreme one way, far extreme the other. And do you take advantage of that or not?
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in a bit, but you mentioned SC Johnson and their current campaign. And to that very point, a lot of the feedback or the pushback to the SC Johnson campaign is the campaign itself is great. It's about the recyclable bottles and pulling it from the sea, etc. However, making stuff in the first place that needs to be recycled and ends up in the oceans kind of counters your message.
Why don't we talk about that for a little bit? I'm not sure if everybody listening understands or knows the story, but Windex, everybody knows Windex, the glass cleaner. So it's made by SC Johnson, and they've taken a pretty big stand. They're the first major company, to come out with a cleaning product where the bottle, so this is their Windex vinegar.
Windex
vinegar cleaner. Yeah. The bottle is 100% made from 100% recyclable ocean plastic, which is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. It's from the Chinese seas or somewhere they put it from. And
so basically they're up there, they partner with an organization who cleans up the plastic from the oceans and then recycle that and turn it back into a consumable product, which again is brilliant. The problem is that they're cleaning up something that they probably helped create. You know what I mean? Because they've been using non-recycled products for so long. Mm-hmm. But you know what? See, that's kind of cynical in my mind. Just because a company has polluted the oceans, should we be criticizing them for trying to clean up the oceans? Shouldn't we be giving them kudos for something like that? Certainly the stats show that would work for them.
Yeah, and some of the folks on this whole Twitter feed are saying that. I think the problem is that the way that they've gone about it is they put out a sponsored tweet, which is why I first came across it. They put out a sponsored tweet, let's get to 20,000 retweets and we'll build a 9th plastic center. So the centers that are recycling all this ocean plastic, etc. There's 8 so far that SC Johnson has built. Kudos. And if they want to get to the 9th one, just retweet this message 20,000 times. And a lot of people are saying, wouldn't it be a better approach to actually build a damn center and then retweet that as a victory to...
But this is like... what? I don't know. I don't think there's anybody on this planet that is more cynical, and maybe even mean-spirited as me. However, maybe, and it could be because this is on Twitter, and Twitter is the toilet of the internet. But they've already built 8. without any one of these campaigns. They're trying to get people to rally behind the effort, right, to do it. Is it a little bit self-serving? Sure. But if a company is going to go through this kind of effort to develop these already 8 of these centers and they want to build a 9th, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. This is a good way for them to drive some publicity. Compare it to what here in Canada, Bell does with Bell Let's Talk.
Right.
They donate money, like, one day every year, like was the 3rd week of February, they have Bell Let's Talk Day, right? And the whole idea here is if you tweet or message somebody with the hashtag Bell Let's Talk, they will donate whatever it is, 2 cents, 3 cents, 5 cents for every one of those tweets. And at the end of the day, they added up the number and they give away millions of dollars. They could just give away millions of dollars, but they haven't done anything to raise awareness. Right. This is what they're doing, is to help raise awareness as well as help sell products. So I don't know that I would be all that cynical.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say something else about Bell, but I won't.
Don't.
No.
Well, you can. What?
Well, no, to your point, the raising money, that's great.
Yeah.
But as far as actually being actively involved on the program side, kind of like SC Johnson is, I don't think they are. I mean, we've seen stories where employees have been let go because they had mental health issues.
Yeah.
And that's always, every year, that's back at the forefront when the campaign comes out. Yes, but what about employee X, employee Y, etc.? So I think that's where buying into the culture and the ethos behind the campaign, that ties into the,
Well, that's really interesting, because one of the other lessons that I've gleaned from some of these statistics that I've been reading the last week, it says that companies can't afford to keep their corporate social responsibilities efforts a secret. While consumers, and this is a direct reference from the study, while consumers indicate they're ready to reward companies for social good efforts, they must hear about those commitments and the results. More than 8 in 10, so 82%, say that if a company makes social and environmental commitments, they will hold it responsible for sharing those results, right? What's more, consumers are realistic, with 91% saying it's okay for a company to not be perfect,
right,
as long as they're honest about the efforts, right? And they use Apple as an example. Apple is a great demonstration of this, sharing its environmental results, admitting its shortcomings when it doesn't achieve them, but committing to a different path if they don't hit it, and showing their journey to where they want to be. Going back to that whole being human thing on social media. So, lesson learned for brands that are listening: if you're going to get involved in this, it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to screw up. It's how you deal with it. Clearly the demand from consumers is there in terms of buying patterns and buying habits. But you have to show long term. You have to show this is part of our corporate culture.
Right.
We're not always going to be right. We're not always going to be 100% perfect. But we're in this with you. Join us. And that's why I don't necessarily hold a brand to account when they try and get the community to sort of participate in some capacity.
Well, fair play to SC Johnson's point. I mean, whoever's running the social media account, and I think it's their corporate responsibility division that actually runs the account, they are sharing links to exactly how SC Johnson is involved in various ways, in getting rid of recyclable products or whatever, and how to actually dispose of, say, the cling film stuff that is really hard to do. So they are being active and showing how they're involved over the years. So.
Well, and this is not something new. This is the other thing. And we're talking about it today because and I want to get to this next, there's a shift from traditional corporate social responsibilities, save the whales, clean the lakes, that kind of stuff, to more on your nose, or in your face, whatever however you want to phrase it, sustainability and climate change. People are sort of tackling more politically sensitive topics right now because that's the buzz. That's what millennial and Gen Z are looking for. But, if you, again, going back to the stats, 25 years of data show a consistent increase in consumers' willingness to purchase products that are associated with a social benefit. Tom's shoes, for example, if you buy, you buy a pair of shoes from them, they will donate a pair of shoes.
Right.
I think there's even a sock company out I've been seeing commercials now. For every pair of socks you buy, they donate a pair of socks to a homeless shelter, because apparently socks is the number one requested item from homeless shelters.
Isn't
clean, dry socks.
Stella Artois doing that as well now? They're giving clean water to...
Every time you buy a chalice, if you buy a Stella chalice, then they will donate X amount of money to clean drinking water in impoverished countries.
Right.
So, so this is something that's been going on for a long time. So clearly it works, yet there's still a lot of brands that are hesitant to get behind it. The one lesson maybe that we want to talk about is companies must move beyond the one-offs to demonstrate a commitment to making a difference. I think that's got to be it. It can't just be like, for example, Tom's with the shoes, buy a pair, get a pair. The chalice with Stella Artois has been going on for quite a long time. It's an ongoing promotion. It's something that they always do. That study that I referenced, 79% say they are more likely to believe a brand's corporate social responsibilities commitments if they share efforts across multiple channels over a longer period of time, opposed to a PR tactic or a stunt. Right. So I think, what's an example of that? Somebody we just gave a couple, but how about Dove? We've mentioned them a couple of times. Their Real Beauty campaign, that's been more than 10 years.
15 maybe?
15 that's been going on. Right. So they have, again, ingrained that not only into our heads, but they've proven that that's part of their corporate ethos. Right. And so it's believable. It isn't a PR stunt, right? Because people are really, again, going back to being cynical, they're going to try and pick it apart. So if you're going to do it, make it a long-term strategy. But the shift, that's what I want to talk about a little bit more now. The shift that's happening, I'm noticing a lot of people are shifting away from taking on I guess, again, clean water or saving the whales, that kind of stuff, and going heavily into environmental issues. Right. And with all the climate, change deniers, and as you mentioned at the beginning, governments, trying to keep status quo for whatever reason, lobbyists really fighting hard, denying the science behind it. How risky is it for a brand to get involved in something like that? Like what, S.C. Johnson is trying to do.
I guess it depends if you get any sort of kickbacks from government, any substances, it's substances funds or whatever. And if the government's part of that, then if that goes against what the government sort of, wishes to happen, then that's going to be an issue. I don't know. I think because going back to the whole, the demographics of the brands who we're looking at, somebody needs to take a stand. If it's brands, it's brands. And that's what we're seeing, so. Well,
it's a real shift, I think, in the way we're marketing. This has been a bit of almost a theme that's been happening over the last couple of podcasts, even though slightly different topics, they always seem to come back to consumer behaviors and what's driving consumer behaviors. And whether this is driven by what's happening in our political world right now, or this is just a social cultural thing that is leading the politics of extremism. Again, going back to the statistics, consumers now expect businesses to be instrumental in addressing key societal hot button topics. Right. So the top 4 issues indicated by consumers: job growth, racial equality, women's rights, and environment. These are things that people are really interested in, and they want brands to stand behind that, which I found really, really interesting. Here's an example, data storage company, Iron Mountain. Iron Mountain, I remember I used to know Iron Mountain way back in the day. They used to get your boxes of paper and shred it. Oh, okay. Right. And I think that's one of their sub companies, or they would take those boxes, those paper boxes full of your files, and they would store them off site because there's only so much room. Now they're a data collection site. So they've got a lot of electronics, but they burn a lot of energy in these buildings. And so what they've done is they've created a process where they will invest in solar, wind, and other renewable energies and actually attribute a percentage of that benefit to the environment to your business based on your share of the data space that you have within their data warehouses. That can now be translated to carbon offset emission taxes. Yeah. So every client of theirs can now get involved and get some credit for what they're doing based on the size of their data within the overall data facility.
Because the more data you need or you're storing, the more
more power it's
using,
going to be
exactly.
required. Yeah, the more bandwidth that you need. So, I mean, it's fantastic because normally what you would have to do, a company to get the carbon offset emission tax, you would have to, or to avoid it, you would have to hire somebody to go ahead and map your blueprint and the impact on the environment to how you're trying to offset it. It's a very expensive thing.
Right.
So what's really interesting about this is that it is completely open source. So even a company like WeWork, where our offices are, because of the relationship, they could actually take that software and do it here with us.
Right.
You know what I mean? With what happens here is lights don't go on until you walk into an area. The air conditioning changes whether there are people here or not. They do a lot of things to help reduce the carbon footprint of these buildings.
Right.
That's a great way to look at any type of tenant, vendor, or co-location facility could take advantage of that. So that's, I think, a really good thing. But what's the problem with consumers, though? Here's the thing. We know this because I like to think that we're incredibly well educated. Well, at least I am. I almost said that with a straight face. I was going to get away with that. But consumers don't buy into it for a lot of, like, they're just, whether it's people who are buying into the naysayers, and the lobbyists, or whether people just don't care. There's still a large group of people, I would think, that don't want to buy into it. How do we get consumers that aren't millennials, who already are looking for this? How does a brand get them to adapt this way of thinking to the point that they're changing their consumer behaviors?
I don't know if they can. I mean, if you look at the US and the amount of people that want coal to be a viable energy,
mm-hmm.
And they're stuck in the mud. They want change. They want coal to be a viable energy. You've got the oil crossings across Canada, etc. So I always think there's going to be a generation, and I might be stereotyping here, I apologize, but I always think there's going to be a generation that just has to be ignored, and the other generation that's coming through are the ones that are going to create the real change. That's what's happening with the young politicians coming through, the young social activists coming through, and they're getting the brands and enabling the brands to have the courage to make these changes and take that stance. So I think possibly we just give up on trying to change these guys' mind and really put our hopes on the guys coming through. That's
interesting. Maybe be careful there, because I think we're getting to the age, or we are the age, that we're the demographic that's going to get ignored.
As long as we keep talking sense,
we have to be careful about that. Well, what's funny? There's a group in New York. All of the I think I forget the number, but there's a large number of the Wall Street, Madison Avenue ad agencies have all gotten together, and they've created a company or an association called Potential Energy. And what they've done is they've created an effort, a think tank, almost a competition of sorts, where they open it up to people to come up with ideas that brands could use to encourage customers, their customers or the general public, to buy into living sustainably. So one of the first campaigns they came up with is called Donate 60. I thought this was brilliant. And it's a student-led nationwide campaign that asks valedictorians and class leaders to donate 60 seconds of their commencement speech, if they're the valedictorian, to the issue that matters most to their generation, along with the actions on climate change, messaging on safety for gun violence, and equality across race, gender, and sexual orientation, were all issues that these students felt compelled to talk about. So they went and they took a look. Interestingly enough, those were the three things. More than 250 students heeded the calls, spanning 136 cities in 24 states. So I thought that was a brilliant way, is like, open it up. Now, of course, that is the young audience. This is the Gen Z. The Generation Z, as opposed to, or Generation Z for the people on the other side of the border.
Well, no, we speak Generation Z. If you say Z, you should be in the US.
Yeah. Well, I'm in the US most of my day, so it's very possible. So I think this is where we have to maybe look at getting the older generation to buy in, because while millennials have the greatest power over the purse today, the boomers still control a good hunk of that money, and their buying behaviors, or maybe where they donate money or where they're investing money into a company that does take on these corporate sustainability projects or not, is going to be key. So I think that's going to have to be a not ignored audience. And teaching them or embracing them, their attitudes, their thoughts, converting them is going to have to be one way that businesses can mitigate the risk, even if it's not from a sales perspective, maybe from an investment perspective and a brand PR perspective. Anyway, that's our time. We're getting the bell. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. But let's leave them with one takeaway. What's your one takeaway from this conversation? I know we don't have a lot of this planned, but
that's our big takeaways.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think you mentioned it earlier, and we've spoken about this before. If you're going to be into cause marketing, you have to believe in the cause that you're marketing to or of, if you like, and make sure that your corporate culture really does truly reflect your corporate culture.
Yeah, I agree.
Not a sound bite or a PR bite to get sales in the short term.
Yeah, I think that's a good takeaway from this conversation. I would also maybe want to, if again, thinking about how I would consult one of our clients, I would look at it as embrace the attitudes of your audience, but have them direct it. Instead of trying to force something down their throats, bring them into the picture, allow them, like, this, what was it? The choose 60 or donate 60, allow them to speak, because they're going to speak their minds, and then you can work with where your audience already is. So instead of dictating, bring them into the conversation. That might be the takeaway or the recommendation that I would give. Anyway, thank you, everybody, once again for listening or watching. If you're watching, on YouTube. Next week, we're hoping to be back in our regular room. As you can tell, we're having some audio or video issues in this particular room. We got kicked out of our regular room. So hopefully that'll be corrected the next time we're here. And maybe Danny will finally get a proper haircut and make the picture that much better.
Yeah, but you know what? At least I don't have like a two-tone beard and moustache going on.
I do have a two-tone beard. This is why, because I'm half boomer, half millennial.
No,
that's what this.
Old. You're just all old.
I am all old. That is very true.
Forgets to dye the bottom part of the beard as well. Anyway, so yeah, if you're enjoying it, make sure you hit the little like or subscribe button up on YouTube and whatever your preferred platform choice is on podcasting. Make sure you to subscribe and share with your friends.
And go check out this Collingwood Winter Stout. It's really, really good if you like a stout beer. Bye, everybody. Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Take care. Cheers.